Seems like Coven was busy getting spammed, so maybe we'll switch to Leo's point of view whilst we get into this game. Yeah, Coven returning to activity really with that TyRanT. Is this guy messaging me? No, he's not. He's messaging both players. That's really weird. I'm switching to both players' point of view and I'm getting it regardless. Yeah, returning to activity with the TyRanT War, and since then he's remained pretty active. A lot of accounts, and in fact he's got a lot of accounts of above 2,000 rating. So this isn't his main account. This is Career of Heaven, but it is Coven, and this account is 2K as well. So he's been really getting back into good shape. Still not really at the level to compete with the very top guys, but certainly competing very well in Huns Arabia at kind of 2K plus level with lots of very good players. So something to watch out for. And also there's a lot of speculation going on at the moment about whether he may compete for TyRanT in the upcoming Chinese team game tournament, the Clan Masters, the final showdown, which starts in roughly 1 month's time. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on that. Leo, everybody's probably seen him before. I casted some Rex of him if you're watching on YouTube a month or so ago. Games against backed Brazilian player, 2K plus, really good full random player. So diverse skill set there. Let's take a look at the maps for each player. I'm just looking at this, making sure this villager actually survives. Yeah, it's not going to be any losses there. Pushing that deer just fine. But looking at the maps for Leo, like this wood line, it's pretty okay. It's kind of pushed for like far forward into the map with a bit of a nasty hill behind it. It almost makes it an enticing target for some towering or some archer raiding later in the game. But back gold is in a really nice position. May even be able to kind of do some warning off here or here to kind of shield that area and prevent free movement around it. And the second gold's pretty close to his starting area as well, so not a bad map in all. Like later on, the hills to either side could be areas for Coven to push in against him, but this one on the left is pretty TCable as well, and also an extra map gold very close to his base, which is always nice to see. Just taking a look at his build, we can see that he did 3 on woods, so almost certainly doing scouts as you would commonly see in a Hun war. The same thing's happening for Coven at the moment, so I think we're going to see scout openings from both players. For his map as well, I think it's probably a little bit better. The gold's in very nice space. It's towards the back, very close to the TC. Got the choice of back and front wood line, so if he lost access to one, he could retreat to the other, although he has chosen to go with the first lumber camp, at least on the back anyway, and I assume he won't split his lumber and he'll put 2 at the back. Second and third golds, though, not looking in the best spots. Both of them in the same place, which can sometimes be an issue because you lose control of one, you lose control of both. So it makes that expanding into that area, especially in the Castle Age, really important in order to continue to be effective through the late game. But certainly a very nice map to start off with for Coven. Only other issue really is that there's 2 stones are forward. Fairly standard openings from both players here. We can see they've basically even been like adding fills to wood and everything, so it's the same time, so like same build orders coming out for that scout rush, and we'll probably see 21 or 22 pop. For Leo though, he has been pushing in a ton of deer, which is going to be really nice. Always good to get that extra free food, and also the fast food of course with the increased gathering speed. Common doing loom at 21 pop, so indicative of the fact that he will click up. Yeah, look who it is, Milano. You didn't expect this, did you, after what I said yesterday? But here I am, managing to make the most of an opportunity. Yeah, so Coven got to click up on 21 pop. 21 pop scouts from him almost certainly. We see him splitting lumber as well, so nothing out of the ordinary there. I'd say that Coven potentially could have better opportunities to do damage with scouts than Leo does, because you know, like Coven's woodline top, well, it's more or less equidistant to TC, but it feels a bit more safe towards the back there. Well, the thing here though is that maybe one spear is going to be able to protect the woodline and the berries at the same time, so in terms of doing spear defense at the start of Feudal Age to the initial scout rush, Leo's got a pretty nice base there, but the gold is on the opposite side, and he did choose to split his lumber, so he's not going to be able to make do, well, split them in like opposite sides of his TC no less, so he's not going to be able to make do with just one spear as a defensive option. Coven, meanwhile, given that both of his lumber camps were towards the back and very close to his TC, he might even get away without doing a spear to defend, especially if he's able to go on the aggressive. Also interesting to note here, he's dropped a ton of palisades behind his wood line. Pretty weird, because like I guess the thing that he's doing is like hope. It's basically to see if Leo tries to drop a tower behind that forest, but I don't know. It's kind of it would be unexpected if Leo was dropping a tower behind that forest so early and managing to get right round behind the back of Coven's map so early to do that. We're not actually seeing a scout rush from him though. He's going with an archery range to start off with. Both players getting double bit axe straight away. Let's have a look at the opening from Leo. He's going stable, so we're going to see scouts from him. I'm really surprised not to see the stable from Coven, but it's creating one archer for the moment, but hasn't transitioned to gold. So if he wants to keep that archery range working, it's going to be skirmishes for now, unless he jumps to gold pretty soon. He's actually looking like he's going to do a kind of almost old-fashioned flood of feudal trash to start off with to just go and be annoying. He's going to send 3 spears and an archer forward with his initial scout, and that will mean that the scout opening by Leo won't really be able to fight against that, but equally this army doesn't really have much ability to actually kill villagers. Can inflict a decent amount of idle time, but spearmen pretty fragile and ineffective in terms of actually posing a significant threat to the enemy economy in such small numbers. Yeah, this is the Coven, this is the old Coven as I was introducing at the start of the game. Playing on one of his alternative accounts, but this one 2K rated as well. So, Leo actually, those scouts passed so close to Coven's spearman and archer that I would have thought that they would have been in line of sight, but he obviously, he doesn't want to engage that, but he presumably saw it, and that's why we're seeing these villagers retreat from that lumber line straight away. But scouts obviously won't bother being brought home, won't bother bringing his scouts home to fight that, because they're better put to use trying to do damage in the opponent's base. But Coven equally must have saw that with the archer's line of sight, or maybe just being very forward thinking here and throwing up that wall anyway. Didn't carry on really producing from that archery range, so he just did the one archer. Didn't go to gold, and I don't know, is he gonna try and get a pretty quick castle time off the back of this, because he's not really doing anything else after making those 3 spearmen and the archer. He initially didn't really do anything. You can see Coven having an easy time of defending there. 1 spear and the scouts straying far too close to the TC. Really like this wall off by Leo though. It just funnels Coven towards that TC, and we're going to see a few skirmishes popping out for Leo as well, which is a perfect counter to what Coven is doing at the moment, unless they get caught like way out here and fall prey to Coven's scout. So both players really struggling to do any damage with the initial units that they produced at the start of Feudal Age. Coven has now made, what, 5 spears, kept a couple at home, making it so easy for him to defend, but as I said, like, doesn't really have the opportunity to do too much damage here, besides forcing some idle. I mean, it was pretty nice that he forced an entire wood line to retreat from that position to the other side. That's a ton of idle time just for sending 3 spears and an archer forward. And then obviously those guys have walked all the way back to start putting up this gold mining encampment, so kind of damage being done aside from kills there in terms of idle time and transit time. So Coven throwing up a stable. Looking at his resources, it's probable that he will think about castle soon enough, so it almost looks like he's going to be doing the the well-known three spear forward plus one archer and 2 spear defensive fast castle strategy. But no, he's actually going to invest in scout production quite late on, and at a point when he's seen that Leo is pretty well compact in his base. Like, he knows he's not really going to be able to hit this area with scouts, so he can only be thinking that he can hit the gold with those scouts. And maybe like he could take Leo a bit by surprise by transitioning into scouts like after some time into the feudal age, getting the scale barding armor as well. Leo doing a nice wall down here to try and stop that circular movement around the base. Stop Coven slipping around the side and hitting the gold from the back at least, and then keeping the army up around here. You'll see that those scouts coming. Although, yeah, he's just seen that stable now, so he knows what's up. He's got at least one spear at home. Presumably he's got at least one more somewhere. I think he'd be wise to place one on this gold mine. I'm going to change his point of view and see if he... Yeah, he's just produced another one, so pretty much as soon as he saw that stable he made another spear straight away, and that spear is going to head back to the gold mine. So, or is it? Is he just going to keep it with his archer army to make it be able to survive an encounter with Coven's scouts when they come? Seems like Leo may just settle for being more like staying in a more defensive posture though. Going to go blacksmith. He's on 2 archer range, so you can see the resources are looking quite good. Needs both a bit more food and gold, but more or less he should get the resources for Castle Age any moment now. Coven hasn't slowed himself down any more than Leo by making that late transition into bloodline +1 scouts. They're going to move in against Leo's army, which is on patrol, and the number of spears there means those scouts need to get out of there, and it's really starting to look like those scouts are a wasted investment for Coven. If he wants to go Knights in the Castle Age, though, he's already got some good upgrades in, and he's also got the bloodlines there for if he goes into CA instead. So even if the scouts don't do too much, not entirely wasteful upgrades that he chose to do there. But he may even pick a Vil with 2 scouts loose inside the base of Leo. Like, those spears and such are out of position. This villager could have taken a couple more downhill hits, but looks like it will get away, and those scouts will more or less have done all that they can now, as long as Leo's spear continues to give chase. Both players clicking up to the Castle Age more or less identical times. Coven getting in gold mining as well. I haven't seen that coming out for Leo thus far, although maybe I missed it. So, having taken down those scouts, Leo is now sensing a good opportunity to attack. I think he was being very cautious with his archery army and keeping spears by them, keeping them at home, because he knew that Coven had made a stable, and I think he saw the garrison flag inside the stable as well, so he knew scouts were coming, and he wanted to make sure he dealt with that. But now that he's got 2 half-dead scouts in his base, being pursued by spears, he knows he's got a window now, presumably, to head out. He probably kept his scout active, although it's idle at the moment, but to kind of figure out if Coven was producing any more, and he may also have seen the Coven score dip when he clicked up to Castle Age. So on that, like, that makes it reasonable for him to assume that it's safe for him to walk across the map with these archery units now, and try and get something done. Although by the time he gets there, Coven will be hitting the Castle Age. He's only 5-10 seconds away. And that could well see a knight or 2 come out straight away to clean this up, potentially. But Coven himself has made a significant transition into archers now. 3 archery ranges up. These scouts still not being caught up by the spears of Leo, although as I say that's exactly what happens when those scouts go down. Or should do. The 2 archery armies slipping right by each other at the moment. We've got crossbow and bodkin coming in for both players, although important to note Leo with a fair number of skirmishers in that ball of units, and those upgrades, or rather the crossbow upgrade, is only going to affect half of those units. So Coven, with the stronger army, once those upgrades kick in, I feel certainly the army with the potential to deal the most damage to the opposing economy. I think if Leo can move in against this gold, he might be able to pick up a couple of kills where the TC should go up in time to enable most, if not all, of those villagers to escape harm's way. Covan's going to move in, get a pick there. Seems like... Sorry, well, Leo is moving in. Meanwhile, Covan moves in on Leo's wood line, but TC has gone up where I thought it would do. He chose to put it closer to the wood line than to the gold mine, which I think is an okay decision to try and stop crossbows just slipping into this area and being out of range of a TC, which is a bit further to the left. Those crossbows from Covan are going to try and move in and pick up some fills in the back of Leo's base, and this is really, really great. At the start of Castle Age, to be forcing 10, 15 villagers away from the enemy's gold, idling that many villagers at a moment when you really want the military production to be kicking in, but also like meaning that no army and no gold income is coming in at all, because that was the only gold that was in the back of Leo's base. Of course, he could have access to that one that's to the left of his TC, and he's going to add a mining camp there to try and take some gold while this army is loose in the back of his base, to try and get a foothold in the game. I mean, he may even be just be thinking, oh, if only I can collect enough gold to get a mangonel out to try and deal with this archery army that's loose. But for now, Leo's army, or Leo's economy even, looking in terribly vulnerable to this army of Covens that has snuck into the back. Really nice timing by Coven, perhaps a little fortuitous, but slipping through this gap in the walls was really important. I'm going to pause the game for a moment because I just want to see if that message from Nelson was to me, which it indeed was. So let me just respond to him. Okay, he's going to PM me, so we shall not be interrupted. Let's return to this game. Coven 2 villagers ahead, so we haven't really seen a ton of villager picks thus far by either player, but the difference in the amount of idle that the players have been able to inflict on each other at the moment is astonishing. Coven doing much the better job now, and he's starting to get 1 or 2 picks as Leo's woodline is looking very, very ragged and vulnerable. Now that Leo has that hill, he may be able to take a good fight, but it looks like Coven still has 1 or 2 more units in there, and to be honest, like, he doesn't need to stand there at all. He can just achieve a lot by just retreating and continuing to roam around in the back of Leo's base. You can see a frantic university going up here, so going to try and use ballistics to drive his enemy out the back of his base. But not only have we seen all those villagers kind of migrating from wood lines, migrating from gold mines, Leo has almost throughout this period had a whole bunch garrisoned in his TC just to make sure that Coven doesn't come too close to this area, and also that Coven doesn't go for a dive past the TC right into the wood line, because the level of death that would be inflicted if that happened would potentially have a very decisive impact upon the outcome of this game. Leo's going to try and do a little bit of counter raiding of his own, but not so many crossbows here at the moment, just 5 and groups of 5 and 2, and he's got another group of 5 on the left hand side here, but there's a mangonel and a bunch of cavalry archers with bodkin +1 armour and bloodlines, so a handful of crossbows really going to do nothing much there. And Coven looks really on point here. He's even garrisoning the TC with great timing, landing the mangonel shot, and I think Leo's struggling to do too much useful with that army that he's got in the back of the base, because of Coven's base, because defending from Coven at home is taking up every ounce of energy and will that he has at the moment. Losing a couple more villagers, trying to get this TC up on the gold. He will clean that up with the army he has now, but the cost has been significant. Coven has had, I think, 3 town centres. Okay, yeah, 3 town centres up for quite some time now. He's taken a sizable lead, 17 villagers. Leo with almost double the army still at this point, but that gap will be closed significantly pretty soon once Coven uses the cavalry archers that he has at home to clean up these few crossbows that are loose, but Leo getting good value for money out of these crossbows that could have been labelled more or less as dead given the peril that they were in. Picking off 2 villagers on the farms of Coven before they went down, probably more than he could have hoped to have achieved with just 4 crossbows loose in Coven's base, when Coven's entire cavalry archer and mangonel army was at home. But still, 2 villagers in the grand scheme of things when you're down 17 is not that impactful. Let's see how much is happening, or what is happening in the chat. How long has Archcoven been a tyrant? At the start of the game I was introducing the fact that he was kind of made an honorary tyrant when he played an exhibition with another old player, RD Champion, during Tyrant War 2, I believe, and since then he's kept the tag. Like, I think if you look on the Tyrant website, he's in the clan. Although this isn't the Nick that's in it. Courier of Heaven. Leo with a group of crossbows getting completely caught out there, picking up a couple of kills from Coven, or kills of Coven's army rather. Those CA remaining downhill and taking a lot of damage even from a few crossbows, but it's starting to look really, really threatening for Leo now. Getting bloodlines, so he's now switching into the cavalry archers. Gonna be going up to 5 ranges. Needs to kind of catch up on cavalry archer count. Actually, I kind of missed the switch. It must have happened a minute or 2 ago, because he's already with a good number of CA ready to push out and try and achieve some raiding. As that army of Leo's moves across the map, Coven getting in a really nice position on the on this wood line. I don't know if that's the only wood line that Leo is taking wood from at the moment. He didn't return to this one over here, so that's completely idled the wood economy of Leo and killed some villagers. Did say at the start of the game that, like, both players had fairly decent maps, but the back wood line that Coven chose to take was an advantage, and it's certainly playing out in this game. Coven has raided so well on that wood line, and even kind of slipping past the side of it as well. Leo looking to do some sizable damage here, but he's pretty much strayed into the range of 2 town centres for a little while then, although this one wasn't garrisoned and firing. At least now idling the main goal in the farmland, but even as he does that, I nearly called him career, Coven is through the eastern wall of Leo, gonna be threatening that goal, picking up a villain and forcing some idle time, but Leo was on point with his reactions at least. But this is a nice little pick. If Leo manages to catch up to those, it looks like he's probably not going to pick up as many kills as he could have done if his luck, or, well, lucky timing would have been a bit better, since he obviously didn't know those villagers were on the move until he strayed into them. Fortunately, Coven noticed that. That could have gone pretty badly for him if he just right-clicked out here, because Leo had caught out that group of cavalry archers and kind of taken that position on the top of the hill. Fortunately, Coven was either on patrol or kind of stopped the units to make them engage. Otherwise, with ballistics presumably done for Leo by this point, I can't actually remember if I saw it coming, he wouldn't have been, well, he'd have seen his cavalry archers whittled down with very little in return, considering his units would have been trying to path outside. But nonetheless, Leo takes a decent fight there with the crest of the hill working to his advantage. Coven's going to push out and try and get a 4th and even a 5th TC up. This is something I noticed when I saw a game of his, I don't know, a week ago or something. He was playing against Vodka, and like he had an advantage early, and then the villager number that he managed to get onto with kind of a lot of town centres were pretty astronomical. Like, he boomed up so fast. He's not one of these players, by the looks of it, who's content to just go like 2-3 TCs all in CA, but instead making kind of a sensible number, trying to get maximum value out of them, and then taking a little bit more of a macro focused longer term approach than perhaps the more all-in approach that you sometimes see in Hun Wars, with like people just spamming from 5-6 ranges from forever, like adding mangonels and just going ham. No, this game isn't live, it is actually a recorded game, but it's from within the last few days. was posted on AOC Zone very, very recently. Elite Skirmish are going to come in from Coven, so basically all of his cavalry archers right now are being used offensively, so perhaps wants to keep up the raiding at Leo's base and then use Elite Skirm to defend at home. And that's something like a luxury he can afford at the moment because he's had a much larger economy than Leo for a long time. The villager difference has remained on a fairly similar size, around 15 difference between the two players is what it's been for quite a long time, but 15 villages working for Coven, 15 extra villages working for Coven throughout really does represent a big difference in economy, and Leo can ill afford to be losing units like this. I mean, he's stopping Coven from gathering this gold and maybe killed 1 or 2 villages here, but he's just lost, I don't know, 6, 7 cavalry archers to with very little reply at all. We can't see any dead stuff from Coven here. So those elite skirmishers proving a nice investment for Coven as Leo looks to raid him. Nonetheless though, we do see the villager gap closing slightly, and we're like getting to that point in the game where like both players have a sizable economy, sizable military, and even though Coven looked to have delivered what was close to being a knockout blow really early in the game, really early in the castle age, shall we say, especially with that supremely effective raid where he went in past this wood line, past this wall. It seems like Leo's kind of ridden it out. I wasn't necessarily expecting him to be able to do that considering how far behind he got, but he's hanging in there, and now he's looking in pretty decent shape. 10 villages and 10 in military behind is a difference, but it's not decisive by any means. I'm going to have a look at Coven's economy because I haven't switched to his point of view for a while, and even though I was saying, oh Leo, you know, you're not doing too bad, military count getting up to a decent level. The issue is that Coven is sitting on no resources now to click up to the Imperial Age, which he will surely do at any moment, and his economy is looking very balanced, whereas if you happen to notice just before I switch point of view, as we see Coven clicking up to the Imperial Age, Leo anything but balanced. Obviously he got those villagers out a lot later, and his economy was kind of ragged for a long time, but that doesn't necessarily excuse sitting around with 2,500 gold in the bank and no food and no wood. In his defense, he is at least spending that food and wood furiously, as we see farms being dropped, and he's on to at least 3-4 TCs right now and dropping more archery ranges, etc. Getting some chain barding armor as well, so maybe he's going to add some more knights and look to go aggressive in the castle age. In fact, we see multiple extra stables added for him, so he's going to go pretty heavy. Perhaps senses that he's going to be way too late to the Imperial Age and that it's not necessarily worth going for that approach, and to maybe try and go full castle aggression. Maybe that's his plan. But I think given that Coven is kind of halfway to the Imperial Age and with more military than him, and Leo isn't really attacking right now, I don't think that would necessarily work out. Ridiculously, that bank of gold continues to climb for Leo, and unfortunately for him, the food not really climbing at all. It's taking a fight on the top of this hill now, which I guess the hill kind of swayed him into fighting it, but with the presence of the elite skirmishers and the numbers for Coven, I'm not sure it's necessarily the best idea. I mean, he's not going to have any problem replacing those CA in terms of gold count at least, but like he must sense that he's behind, and kind of trading sort of 1 for 1 once you throw in the fact that the skirmishers were outputting better damage there isn't really a good way to come back into the game against an opponent that is ahead of you. I mean, fine if you're having to defend at your own base, but taking a fairly even fight in the corner of the map. I guess, though, from his point of view, one nice thing about that is he's reduced the number of enemy units that Coven has to upgrade with that Imperial Age kicking in. But even so, his economy, given that it is behind, will have more difficulty in kind of replacing those units. handcart only now kicking in for him at minute 45. I'm going to guess Coven's had that for quite a while, but that should give Leo the push to enable him to bank up that food and get up to the Imperial Age if he so chooses. But right now we're seeing quite a commitment into Knights, also lots of CA producing from lots of buildings here, mixed CA and Knight army going more or less full castle at the moment. But the food is starting to mount up a little bit, and perhaps we'll see that Imperial Age click from him before too long. The thing is, at this point it's really hard for him to do any kind of sizable damage to Coven if Coven plays defensively, because Coven just out-techs him. We can see Bracer done already. Chemistry's kicking in on those CA as well, and Coven also adding in the light cavern, eventually Hussar route, getting those barding armor upgrades and also Parthian tactics for the CA, at which point the difference in power between the Castle Age cavalry archers of Leo and the Imperial Age upgraded, and albeit non-heavy cavalry archers of Coven will be pretty drastic. So Leo going to dive under Coven's TC right now. Not sure whether this is kind of the best use of this army, because even though he's killing the skirmishers pretty easily and idling some villagers, it's taking a ton of damage on all of those units, and doesn't want to lose too many of them, and to then not have them to upgrade once he reaches the Imperial Age. Just idling like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 farms for Coven. It's not like a death blow that is going to make it worth losing a ton of CA and Knights under the fire of lots of TCs and skirmishers and cavalry archers in the back of Coven's base. You can see, as I talk about the fact that it's not really worth idling 6 or so farms for the damage that Leo's army was sustaining there. Coven with a much cheaper and yet more effective movement into the back of Leo's base here, because he's forced 10, 15 villagers away from all these farms of woodlines, and he's not under a TC taking damage. I think, like, for the whole of this game, the raiding has just been so much more effective for Coven, picking up a lot more idle time and a lot less damage to his units with the positions that he's chosen to hit. Leo cleaning some of this up quite nicely, but all of the pressure, more or less now, if we look at the map, is on Leo's side of things. Coven's not necessarily taking the best fight here, because it's a bit outnumbered and also somewhat downhill. Well, in this game, somewhat or extremely downhill doesn't really matter if it's uphill or downhill or flat, isn't it? It's the same thing, but just across the lip of that hill, if you like, meaning that he was taking extra damage then, and I don't know if that was the best fight just momentarily for Coven, but he's wheeled in tons of reinforcements now, and Leo's economy in this area is going to be idle for pretty much forever, because Leo just doesn't have the ability to kick all of these cavalry archers with the Imperial Age upgrades out at the moment. They've got +4, +4 Parthian, so that's chemistry and Bracer, Parthian tactics, etc. No heavy cavalry archer just yet, but so easy with +4 Pierce armor as well to kind of sit under TC's tanks on fire for a while. Hussar's continuing to pick up kills, and a whole bunch over here actually, and just be a nightmare for Leo whilst the main bulk of Coven's army is elsewhere and he's primarily having to deal with that. Coven must be rich at the moment, getting guilds to sell off resources, and indeed, as we switch to his point of view, that is one very rich looking resource bar indeed. He's not a pop cap yet, so he could be spamming a bit more stuff and doing even more raiding, even more flooding into Leo's base if he wanted to, and with that amount of resources, I'm surprised we don't just see heavy cavalry archer. Players, quite rightly, will often prioritise prioritise Parthian tactics if they can't afford both, but I think once you start to float resources like this and you're still primarily making cavalry archers, I think the heavy upgrade would be very much worthwhile. Going to transition into capped rams and presumably eventually siege rams as well. Leo's going to add a castle on this right hand side to try and stem the flow of raiding over here, but the rams are already moving in from Coven, and if Coven dispatched a good portion of his army here with those rams, that castle would not go up, and as soon as the rams came in, Leo would be forced to basically delete it, because if Coven chose to do so, to direct his attention to denying that castle, he could easily do it. Leo trying to do some counter raiding here, but again, as I've said so many times in this game, like whenever he's been raiding, he's been picking up a few villages here or there, denying a few resources, but it's not anything that's going to be really impactful and decisive. You know, a couple of villages off the stone and the farmland when the players are in the well into the Imperial Age now, with high. Well, actually, the populations aren't terribly high, but you get my point. Killing 3, 4, 5 villages at this stage of the game, although always welcome and a nice boost, is not going to be something that can bring Leo back into this game, considering the deficit that he's at the moment. At least he's got Parthian tactics and Bracer on his cavalry archers now, but chemistry still missing, so going to be easier for Coven to take any kind of pitched battle between cavalry archer armies. But Coven seems to be almost deliberately not getting that heavy cavalry archer upgrade. I'm surprised to see it. Perhaps justified in that his gold reserves aren't quite as hefty as they were a moment ago as he's continued to produce, and he's nowhere near pop cap yet either, so perhaps he prefers to get popped before kicking in that final upgrade. But there we go, cavalry archer, heavy cavalry archer coming in for him finally. And with Siege Ram already done, massively decisive weapon in the Imperial Age, if the other player doesn't really have any rams going at all, and is primarily on a cavalry archer based composition, with those Siege Rams kicking in, Covenant looks in great shape now. Leo's recognising that. He's been raided into oblivion on the left hand side here and on the right hand side, and the Siege Rams are about to be the thing that just rolls through his base. Coven didn't even get a chance to show that heavy cavalry archer upgrade that was kicking in, which may have caused Leo to feel, well, to conclude to an even greater degree that game was over. But a really great game by Coven there. As I said, the raiding was the important thing, like throughout. We saw when he snuck a bunch of crossbows through a gap that Leo had opened up momentarily in his walls just to build a TC. The timing from Coven there was impeccable, fortuitous perhaps, but impeccable nonetheless. And the sheer amount of idle that he inflicted, if not kills at first, ultimately proved pretty decisive. Enabled Coven to kind of be untouched at home for a little while, get on 2 and eventually 3 TCs, establish a 15 villager lead, and was always ahead in a macro sense and continued to raid better throughout the rest of the game. Really nice performance by him. Just going to show some achievements. Villager height basically the same, but the fact was that Coven had those villagers so much earlier that that was the decisive factor. It's not just how many villagers you eventually end up with, it's how early you have them and how long they're working for. And also, like, if we could have seen the idle time there, I've got a new overlay, so I'm not sure if I can cycle to it on this new overlay because I used to use the dashboard, but maybe the idle time would have been drastically greater for Leo as well. But it's not just idle time, it's transit time, when those archers are moving in on the wood line and you kind of run all the villagers back to the TC or to a new lumber camp and then you run them all the way back. The game wouldn't count that as idle, but it is idle in the sense that they're not gathering resources. You also see the difference in food and wood, just astronomical. Leo kept up with gold gathering more or less. No surprise to see that, considering the size of the gold bank that he was floating. But Coven's macro, in combination with the raiding to deny Leo's macro, just much better. Even though players traded roughly equally in terms of army size. well, sorry, in terms of kills and deaths, but army size being a difference for Coven in the end. The fact that his economy was much bigger meant that he was able to replace losses better in the Imperial Age and get up towards that pop cap